Step on up, sit down, twist off that bottle top or crack open that can, and welcome to Porch Matters. This is Terry Cagle coming to you from my back porch. Yes sir, yes ma'am, the name of this show is authentic. On Porch Matters, our saying is this: big issues or just a friendly conversation, no topic is off limits. We take pride in being able to talk about anything with each other in an open discussion. Open discussion is one of the only ways to learn. Your perspective could be changed. You could change the perspective of others. Friends and family, welcome back to another episode of Porch Matters. I'm glad you're here. Today is the day that you go get sunburnt in or by the pool, river, lake, or ocean. The day you pop that top on that delicious ice-cold beverage that is covered in that American flag koozie you only use once a year like a champ that you are. You got red, white, and blue shorts on, don't you, boy? Ladies, you done pulled out that American flag bikini, ain't you? You dadgum right you have. The day that you ride around on a boat pulling someone on a tube trying to look as cool as Alan Jackson on the Chattahoochee. The pinnacle day of summer where Lee Greenwood will be heard on your Bluetooth speaker and in your heart because you really are proud to be an American. The day that men truly feel like kings by their grill, and one of 2 days a year where you have to pass out medication to the dogs because the explosions they will see and hear might make them have explosions in your house. Happy 4th of July, everybody. Smells like freedom out here on the porch. I hope that you, your family, and friends have had a great holiday weekend. Even the birds are chirping louder out here because they know what day it is. I got to spend some time with some of Stacy's family yesterday, and then she got to spend some time with some of mine. I had a blast yesterday. I hadn't got to see some of my family since this time last year. It was really good to see them. If any of you are listening, and most of you should be, we really need to do that more often. I hope that you take a moment and think about what today is as well. It's a day we celebrate that our forefathers united as one against the strongest empire the world knew at the time and said, you know what? We ain't going to do things the way you want anymore. Take the time today to read the Declaration of Independence. Remember who we are and where we came from. This country's origins is a great story. Speaking of good stories, on this episode, I welcome Jody Disney to the porch. Jody made a name for himself in the tough man fights. He played some semi-pro football and was also a professional wrestler. He has an interesting story to tell. He came on the porch and I just hit the record button. No format, no outline, just a conversation. You'll be joining this conversation already in progress, and I really hope that you enjoy it as much as I did. Without further ado, let's get started.
Let me know you're recording. That's amazing.
I know, right?
Well, I'm telling you, that thing's way smarter than I am.
Oh, come on now. You're a truck driver.
Buddy, I know. Believe me, I wish I'd have done anything in my life besides drive a truck. If somebody would have told me that, go try and drive a truck. If you don't like it, you can go try and find something else. Well, by the time you get out there and you start making better money and you're going to make anywhere around the house, because you're like me, you live in a small town, there's really no money to be made. You have to be gone to make money. And that's my whole life. I've been gone making money. Never fails. And then you get that hankering. You try and get out of a truck, you get that diesel hankering, you can't get away from it.
Yep, that's when you're pulling up to red lights and up next to a dump truck or a diesel truck or whatever, and you're rolling down the window and listening to it and closing your eyes and inhaling exhaust because it's in your blood so bad.
Yep, or you see a big, nice, stretched out 379. You're like, oh, the freedom of it all.
Right. What keeps us in a truck?
Buddy, I swear. I think when I first started, I said, it'd be nice to be in a job like that where I don't have anybody standing right over my shoulder telling me what to do, what not to do. But as I've found out, physically, there's nobody standing over my shoulder, but the DOT and everybody else is always right there in the background controlling every move you make. You have a little more freedom than you do with, say working at a factory and you got supervisors walking around, but the responsibility that falls on a truck driver's back and mind is, it's big time.
It is.
Which I think a lot of these guys that got out here letting them have CDLs, and I say letting them have, I say that very, I make fun of that a lot because I feel like that's what they do. They let some of these guys have them because some of these guys ain't got no business driving a truck nowadays.
It's just
they got no respect.
It's just like a lot of different industries. People are getting in it and they got no business being in it.
That's a fact.
Some of these people hadn't got a clue as to what it takes about driving a truck. I'll say it for you. And I think I know where you were going with this. They don't respect the heritage. They don't respect the history. They don't respect the people that came before them. They won't listen to anybody that's been doing it longer than them. Yeah. I feel you.
That is a lot of it. But honestly, it's 2021. I started driving a truck in 1993. The difference of now and not to then, but just a difference from now to 2003, say 10 years later, is the difference of people's respect for human beings is ridiculous. There is none. Now, especially, man, I'm amazed when you're out on the road and you see people broke down on the side of the highway. Common sense tells a driver or anybody, try and get over and get away from them. You may hit them. You can't even get that much common sense out of people. They just fly by them and they don't care. And the respect for the human being is gone. I just don't see it today. And it's sad, man, because I can remember when you'd see 2 or 3 big trucks pulled over on the side of the road trying to help somebody either change a tire or, many times I pulled over and seen people with kids and let them sit in my truck with their air conditioning because it's 1,000,000 degrees outside. You can't leave kids out in the heat like that.
No.
That's just the wrong thing to do. I've seen it and I've done it. And, you see people in wrecks, you stop and you try to help them. I don't particularly do that anymore. I learned my lesson real quick with that one. The respect for the human being is not what it was at one time.
I agree wholeheartedly. What do you think's the cause of that? Is it the generational deal? Is it my generation's fault? Because I'm a little bit younger than you.
I don't think it falls on any one generation. I think it's just, I blame social media. A lot of, social media and the news and politicians.
I can agree with that wholeheartedly, but in a lot of instances, the reason why I'm saying my generation, I'll even go a step further than that. It's an each generation thing a little bit lacks. You know what? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I think that everything starts at home.
Oh, I agree with that completely.
Everything starts at home. The way your morals, your beliefs, your respect, everything starts at home. And for better or worse, the way this country is now, you used to be able to have one person go out. Most of the time it was a man, be able to provide for the family, where the wife stayed home, raised the kids, basically. Now you can't do that. You've got to have at least 2 incomes coming in to be able to survive.
Yeah.
In most instances, there's at least one of them's working more than one job just to be able to put food on the table.
Yeah, you are right completely.
So, and that kind of started with my generation back in the 80s. And now that it's progressed, let's face facts, tablets and it's not even TVs anymore. Tablets and phones are babysitting now. Tablets and phones are the ones that's doing the teaching and everything. I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying that's the way it is. When
I was growing up, I grew up in Corbin, Kentucky, which is small town USA, Kentucky. Only thing we're famous for is the original Kentucky Fried Chicken. I don't know if that's
Fantastic
bad or
chicken,
good.
by the way.
Oh,
The, the Colonel did real good whenever he created the original recipe. I'm just saying.
He did. Actually, I used to have pictures. Colonel Sanders used to come squirrel hunt with my grandpa when I was little. I mean, I was real little. And I don't know. I couldn't tell you the years exactly. My papa was the biggest bootlegger in our city. I mean, he sold more beer than anybody. The cops would come to the house and warn him they was coming to raid him. So me and my mom would be loading beer to move it in my uncle's pickup truck. He would haul it up the road. They'd come raid. They'd be gone. He'd come back. We'd load it back in the refrigerator. I mean, that's the way things were done. That's the way we made a living. Because
Right.
my papa was retired from the mines, and my mom was unemployed. I was raised. I mean, and we were talking about society. I was raised on welfare and food stamps. That was what my mom did because she was a single parent.
Mm-hmm.
And my grandpa, it was his house. We lived with him till I was 10. But now my papa, he raised cattle. He had a big farm. And I learned real quick what responsibility and work was. And, I mean, my jobs were pretty simple. I would get up in the mornings and I would go out and turn the water spigots on for the cows and walk down the hog lot, turn the water spigots on for the hogs. And I would walk back up and just keep my eyes, which one got full first, and shut them both off. I'd go back in the house. I'd go back to bed or whatever I want to do. But eventually I had to get up and go to school.
Right.
And I made $5 a week to mow the grass. That was my job. Those were my job. That's the only thing I ever did. But it gave me a little bit of structure. You got to get up and go to work every day. Never fails.
Right. Yeah.
I don't know what happened in high school because I didn't want to get up and go to school. I got lazy.
I'll be honest with you. I've been lazy all my life. There's a lazy streak in me. I'll work, but if I don't have to work, I ain't going to. My grandma and my grandpa, they basically the same thing. During the summer, we was out growing gardens.
Mm-hmm.
Tomatoes, squash, peas. I hate peas to this day. I can't stand them.
I don't like peas, but
beans.
I'll eat about anything. You've seen me. I'm not going to pass on many meals.
Well, you've seen me too. I mean, you can call me pretty much whatever you want to, except for late to dinner.
Exactly.
But and the listeners have heard me talk about them. But there's one thing that they probably haven't heard me share because I haven't shared it until right now. My grandma and grandpa basically lived off of $500 a month.
Mm-hmm.
So grandpa would sell hay. He would go out and he was kind of like the community handyman. He would go out and do odd jobs for different people, stuff like that. That's how they got by. He taught me a lot of my work ethic.
The older generation, work ethic was all that mattered.
Mm-hmm.
Because without work ethic, you couldn't make no money no matter what you was doing. It didn't matter what kind of work you was doing.
Right.
If you didn't work some job, you were a failure. You were nothing.
Yeah.
You were just, they looked at you as scum if you wasn't working.
Yeah.
And I know exactly what you're saying. I mean, my grandpa was the kind of guy I'd ask him for 50 cents. Yeah, back now my kids ask me for $20. That's 50 cents now. Mm-hmm. But I would ask him 50 cents. His best friend's always around with him. He said, Lord, you'd have to take a bullwhip and beat 50 cents out of him. I said, no kidding. And now, kids look at $20 as like, chump change. That's what's wrong with society. Everything's got to be this much bigger or this much better. And life was so much simpler when I was a kid. I was so much happier with just an old bicycle and a skateboard and, piling up a couple of concrete blocks in a tube of tin and making me a ramp and doing my Evel Knievel impersonations, which explains to all my hard licks to the head, I think. But, those were such good times back then. And kids nowadays, my grandkids, I love all my grandkids, and I see them and I swear it's just like they have no drive. I mean, my kids are like me. They work. I mean, thank God my kids inherited a good work ethic, but they got to have, you got to let a kid be a kid,
Right.
And I mean, my grandkids get to be kids, but I'm just saying I don't know, maybe they're just because they're young. I don't see it, and I'm not around them as much as I'd like to be. My papa, he was around me every day, so he kind of instilled and pushed, and you know, that was always good for me. I guess I think most of my grandkids are scared of me most of the time, and I don't know why. I think it's because I'm so big. Because the Lord knows my two boys, they're big boys, but now I'm twice the size of them.
Yeah.
You can take both of them, and that's about me.
Going back to the work ethic and everything, a lot of your kids these days, for better or worse, they don't know what it means to earn that $20 that you were talking about a minute ago.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
You are right.
a lot of kids don't understand what it means to get out and have to do this, that, and the other to be able to get it, for better or worse. And I'm not saying it's bad. I'm not saying it's good, but just the way it is. They got that handout. So,
Mm-hmm.
whereas,
And a lot of that's my fault as far as my kids go. And parents nowadays, I think to keep kids satisfied, they just give it to them. It's like I can't spend time with you, so I just give you money.
yeah,
And I get that because that's kind of what I did. Because I didn't get to see all my kids because I've been married 3 times, and it's divorce is never easy on the kids nor the parents, but it happens. And my kids, God love them, they're tight, even though they're from different mothers, but they're all tight, and I can appreciate that, and I'm glad of that.
coming off of Father's Day, did you get anything good?
Nah, nothing this year. I had the Father's Day was pretty much a bust this year for me, but I mean it's all good.
Well, if you're like
I got
me,
calls and messages, and
if you're like me, I appreciate if I get gifts, and I'm not a father, but just coming from my birthday is just another day to me. I don't do birthday parties, and when it comes to Christmas time, people ask me what I want. I just tell them, give me a hug. I don't want anything, and that goes back to my granddad. I always thought my granddaddy was really, really hard to buy gifts for. He had it. I mean, the only thing he liked to do was work out on the porch or go do odd jobs or whatever. He had every tool known to man. So whenever it come time to buy him anything, whenever you watch him open up gifts and everything, he just never did really act really enthused or excited about anything. So we all just assumed he was hard to buy for. I asked him one year, I was like, what do you want for Christmas? He said, only thing I want is for everybody to be together down here at the house and everything. He said, well, if I get that, I'm fine. That really stuck with me. And now that's all I want. I don't want a gift. I just want a
yeah.
hug. I just want to be with the people that I care about. I'm not hard to buy for. I'm not hard to deal with. I just want the good company of friends and family. That's all I want.
Well, it's kind of funny because when you say that, uh, 2012 was a real turning point in my life. November 2012, I went in the hospital to have supposed to be just a simple weight loss surgery, and something went haywire. And back up a little bit. Back in 2007, I'd had the lap band put in because my weight's been an issue ever since I retired from sports. I had the lap band put in 2012. I had it removed and did the gastric sleeve. And when they removed the lap band, it popped in the back and nicked the back of my stomach. Well, they didn't catch that in the surgery. Well, I was in recovery later that day, and I kept telling my cousin Greg, he was with me, him and his wife. And I said, man, I'm hurting. I say something hurting me real bad. And I sweat, man. I was profusely sweating. For long that evening, I was bad off. I was hurting so bad. And I kind of thrive on pain. Pain don't barely bother me. But man, this kind of pain here was just taking my wind plumb out of me. I told him, I said, get the nurse in here. I was like, I got to have some help here. That girl come in and she looked and she was like, I can't see anything wrong. I think you just got gas. And I told her, I said, honey, I'm not trying to tell you don't know what you're doing, but please get me somebody else in here. They brought my charge nurse in, and Amanda was her name. I still got her on Facebook. She's still my friend. She's a good girl. She saved my life, I like to think. And the first thing she does is look at my catheter. Well, it's completely blood red. And she gets on her cell phone. She calls a doctor. Next thing I could hear was footsteps. I could hear him running up the hall. He comes in. He's looks over. He grabs my hand. He's shaking my hand, giving the old brother hug. And he's, big boy, I got you. Don't worry. And I said, that's easy for you to say. He's a good guy, man. And I said, my life's in your hands, buddy. I said, let's get her done. And I don't really remember nothing after they gave me something for the pain, something to ease down. And they rushed me into surgery the next morning, put a filter in. I went into a coma the next afternoon. They induced me into a coma. I didn't go into one. I was asleep for 5 weeks. And I was in hospital for right at like a week shy of being 3 months. I had to teach myself how to walk, talk, everything all over again. But during that time, it's November the 8th, I went in. I woke up December the 13th, I think it was. And I had the windpipe. They had to do a tracheotomy while I was in the coma. So I couldn't talk for the first 2, 3, 4 days. They finally put the cap on my thing. And my point was, when my mother called, my mother had been battling brain cancer for, I guess, better part of a year and a half, 2 years at this time when I went in. She called me. I had told them, do not tell Mom. Do not tell my mother anything. Well, my stepdad, being the kind of guy he is, he's a drama queen. He decided he was going to tell her anyways. So she calls me, checks on me. And I said, oh, I'm fine, Mom. I mean, I could talk. They had the cap on my throat piece. And I said, I'm fine, Mom. I'm fine. And she goes, don't lie to me, boy. I said, I'm good. I said, I'll see you. I said, I'll be coming home here shortly. I said, I just want to keep an eye on me. And she goes, well, and the words that still hit me directly to the bone today. Now, you got to imagine this. My mother was not just my mother. She was like a sister, a best friend, a mom. She was my go-to. Nobody in this world was my go-to except, and she's what a mom's supposed to be to everybody. Everybody's mom's supposed to be this way.
That's what my mom is to me. I'm a proud mama's boy, but please keep going.
Oh, I'm a huge mama's boy, and I will be to the day they put me in a hole.
Same here.
But the word she said to me, she said, well, she goes, I'll see you someday when you come home. Which at that time, it struck me strange the way she said it, because just knowing how my mom was. And that was on the 19th, I think it was. And I was in and out of consciousness a little bit because I was having some severe migraine headaches. And I mean, you got to figure I had a hole in my chest the size of a softball, right, and as long as a football, probably bigger, like the size of a Nerf football, I guess. You could see my guts, everything I had. So they was coming in, keeping me doped up, packing it all the time, trying to get it to heal up. And I woke up on the 23rd at like 9 or 10 in the morning. And I kept telling myself, I want my cell phone. I'm going to call my mom. It's just on my mind and my heart to call my mom. 1 o'clock in the afternoon, I finally got my cell phone to me. I turned it on. And I hadn't been on my phone because I hadn't been able to use my hands none. My hands were swelled up. I looked like I had Hellboy hands when I woke up. They were swelled so bad.
Wow.
And I hit my mom's number. My phone shut off and never worked again. That phone right there never worked another day. It would not power up. It would not nothing. And I just sat there and looked at it. And I knew right then and there my mom would pass away that day if she wasn't already gone.
Yeah.
And at 4 o'clock in the evening, 4:30, my cousin Greg called me. Him and his wife were at home. I already knew. I just knew in my heart. I'd know all day. And he said, are you awake? I said, yeah, come on. I already know. But come on anyway. And my oldest daughter called me. why he was on the way. And they were, I guess she was with the rest of them. They were telling me, because there was a lot of snow on the ground, so I didn't want my kids traveling a lot.
Right.
It was a rough time. And after my whole point of that whole story was, because if you don't know the whole story, you just don't know where I come from with it. But my mom and my stepdad never had a lot of money. My stepdad was retired military, and he was the kind of guy at the first of the month, he'd blow every dime he had. By the end of the month, he had no money. So I decided after this that me and my fiance now, she and I have a dinner either the week right after Christmas or the week right before Christmas, anywhere during there. And all my kids come to my house. I cook for them. My birthday's the day after Christmas. So when you say your birthday's just another day, believe me, mine's another day I'd like to just forget sometimes. Because you never get nothing, no way.
Yeah, my birthday's on the 16th.
So that's what we do.
So I'm right behind you.
Oh, you're 10 days behind me exactly.
Yep. I'm right on your back door, driver.
My kids come, and my grandkids, I've got so many grandkids now. I'm getting ready to be 13 grandkids in September.
Whew.
And that goes with I've got an 8-year-old bonus daughter that's not even close to starting on kids, and I've got one who'd like to have another one. And I'm just like, God, will y'all please slow down? You're killing me. Christmas sucks at my house, $25 in a candy cane, and all I want is a hug from these kids.
This is why he still drives a truck. He's got to be able to afford Christmas gifts.
Exactly, buddy. Exactly. That is how I want Christmas. I'm like you. In the end, having them all together, having everybody with me as many times as much as I can. Because my kids have, my kids have in-laws. They have their mother's sides of the family. And, my grandkids, they want to spend it with this grandmother. They still have great grandparents that are alive and very involved in their lives. And that tickles me because I didn't have that.
Right.
I had one grandpa, and that was it. And my grandmother had passed away before I was born. Like I said, no father involved. Now my stepdad, his parents were involved, but now his mother passed away real early after they got married when I was 10. But I'm telling you, man, it's been at this point in life, I don't want to say I have any regrets about how my kids and me are. I'm very proud of them, very proud of them. And I like to think that they were very proud of me because, I had in my life, it's been a up and down, being a father. I don't know because I didn't know how to be. I didn't know how to be. If my stepdad wasn't worth flying spit for being a dad, other than pounding my brains out, he wasn't worth powder take to blow a piss hand's balls off. But now, when my oldest son was born, my whole attitude changed.
How so?
And I just, I looked at him when he was born, and I said, when I looked at him, God, he was a good-looking feller. And I ain't saying it because he looks just like me either, but he was a good-looking guy. And he was when they handed him to me, as soon as they cut the cord, they handed him to me. And I looked at him, and his eyes were wide open. And I was bawling. And I was like, I'm your daddy. And I said, don't you ever worry. I said, you'll be fine. I'll make sure of it. And I failed him a few times. I have failed him a few times. But for the overall, he's grown up to be as good a man as I could ever hope for a kid to be. And all my kids are, they're as good as any parent would ever hope for somebody to be, I think. Sports was kind of what I depended on. That's what I thought was going to be my calling in life. I thought I would make a living doing sports because I was that strong. I was that big. I was that confident. I was kind of an athletic freak for a guy my size. And people just kind of always told me, it's like, man, you need to be doing this. You need to be wrestling. You need to be playing football. But every time I talk about going to play football more, people say, you're too short. I'm like, what do you mean I'm too short? And I can bench press a truck. What are you talking about? I can squat 2 trucks. And finally, I was bouncing in a bar and right there in Corbin, which, it was still dry. So it was a bar. They ranged from 6 years old to 106 years old is how old the people were come in there.
Right.
So I had to be real careful. You got young kids and stuff. You can't be too rough. But man, this place was the only real place in town to go. And Corbin's a pretty big town. They had a tough man contest poster up, and I thought, $1,000 go a long way in my house.
Absolutely.
And I just laughed about it. The guys at the band, they're good friends of mine. Like, Jody, you need to do that. You need to do that. Because now I roadied for these guys for a while. I mean, we had a blast just traveling around, putting on shows. And they told me, they said, man, if you don't do this, man, you're going to regret it. So I finally decided, all right, I'm going to do it. I paid my $50 entry fee. This was the tough man of tough mans. I mean, it was the big one. And I had always seen this when I was a kid. I'd be watching Saturday morning wrestling, and they'd have those commercials come on. Says Knoxville's toughest man, but they were bare knuckles back in those days.
Yeah.
For best of my knowledge, I mean, that's what I always took it as.
For those of you that are listening and don't know what he's talking about, the Tough Man competitions was the precursors to modern MMA.
Mm-hmm.
Jody, you did it. You know more about it than I do, but it was mainly 3 rounds, and basically just anybody could pay their money, get in. Let's see how tough you are.
3 1-minute rounds. It was judged it on a point system, just like boxing. If you had a pulse and you could hold your hands up and put gloves on and not throw, I've seen guys kicking at people and stuff. I just laugh. I say, oh my God, these guys are a joke. And, but it was they had a doctor back there. They checked your blood pressure and stuff. I mean, I have seen some guys get checked out because their blood pressure got too out of whack, but they got wound up and excited. I mean, you kind of have to laugh at them and say, poor guy, he ain't never been out of the house, I guess. There's a lot of fun. I'll just tell you, I think it's something every grown man needs to do. It's kind of a check.
Yeah.
It'll check a man real quick.
I agree wholeheartedly with you. I think everybody needs to do it at least once, and not necessarily that, but at least get in a fight, because it will check you, just like you said. A lot of people these days, especially on social media, they will say whatever in the heck they want to say because they know they can get away with it. But before social media came around,
we used to call it CB Rambos.
Exactly. Before all of that came around, you better have enough rear end to back up what your mouth spews, because if you didn't, you got hit in the mouth.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of people that hadn't never been hit in the mouth before, and you can tell it. There you can always. I've always heard this, and I've
especially after they wake up.
Yeah, I've been in a fight a time or two, and you can always tell the difference afterwards, because there's a lot, especially on some people that's never been in a fight. They'll say whatever they want to till they get hit in the mouth. Then you're either going to have one of two things. You're either going to fight back or you're going to run. It does.
Trying to talk your way out of it.
It absolutely shows what you're made of. I'm not advocating for everybody to just go out and go have a brawl or anything like that, but I definitely think.
Oh yeah.
I definitely think it's good for you to a certain extent.
When you say don't everybody go out and get a brawl, I want to make sure and get this point across. I'm 52 years old. I have never started a fight in a day of my life. I've finished many, but I've never started a one. I'm very proud of that.
Yes.
I like to think I was never a bully, because I didn't want to be, because I didn't like bullies. I had a lot of friends that were a lot smaller. I was never a great big guy until I got older. I was 16. I suddenly had a growth spurt that's never stopped. I think sometimes. I think it's still going.
Yeah, I think mine is too. I'm not getting any taller. I'm just getting wider.
Lord, you got to do something.
Yeah, I'm not getting any taller. I'm just getting wider.
Everybody said, you need to grow up. I said, well, if I wished I would. Everybody says, I wish you'd grow up. I said, I wished I would too, because just growing out sucks.
It does. Clothes get a whole lot more expensive for the wider you get.
Oh man, I'm still at a 6X shirt. It's about $35 a shirt every time I have to buy one. And believe me, ain't no wonder I drive a truck. I can't afford my clothes.
Well, I'm right behind you. I'm in a
Mind you, I
four.
can buy pants. I can buy pants at Walmart. And
I'm in a 4 and 5 XL myself. So I'm right behind you.
you have to change it. You have to change this to the big man channel. Charge more.
The big boy network.
But to get back to yeah, no doubt. To get back to my story about the tough man, when it come down to it, I had 3 or 4 friends that was going to get in it too. And I thought, well, heck yeah, this would be something I can go do with my buddies, you know. It cost me a weekend to work. But I thought, you know, heck, I'll win. I was confident I'd win. Man, we went to Whitley County High School. This was in 1991, I think it was. I'd never had a pair of boxing gloves on a day of my life. I had no clue what I got into. I come in there, man, and the lunchroom where they had us all gather up.
Yeah.
I bet there was 150 or 170 guys in there.
Really?
I was like, oh my God. Some of these guys I knew, some of them I didn't. I just kind of sit back with my buddies. And we just kind of laughed it off, you know. And it come down to it, man. It was we started Friday night at I think 6 or 7 o'clock. I didn't fight my first fight till 1 o'clock in the morning. It took all flipping night. By the time I got in the ring, I was actually across the ring from a guy I knew. Name's Donnie Wilson. Good dude, man. We were almost identical twins as far as size. And we weighed about the same height, same look. And we're still friends today, as a matter of fact. Him and his wife, we've always been good friends. And he just, the bell rung. And I mean, it was just a war for 3 rounds. And when it was over, you know, we stand there. I had no clue if I'd won or not. I knew I'd knocked his headgear off a couple of times. When they won, I jumped up on the corner rope, man. I screamed, I am the man. People tease me about that to this day. You still the man. I'm like, if you say so. But I tell you what, you could look in the crowd. I didn't really think it was that bad, but when I looked in the crowd, you couldn't even see the bleachers in the top of that gym for the cigarette smoke. It was so thick you could cut it with a knife like a Scooby-Doo cartoon. You could literally cut a donut out of it, man. Wow. I was like, it ain't no wonder I can't breathe in here. Well, the next night I go back down there and I fought 4 or 5 times. And I finally get in there with my high school nemesis. This guy played for another team across town. And man, you could feel the tension in the air from the crowd. Whitley County was on this side and the rest of the city was on this side for me. And I was winning, man. I was winning big. I had him running away from me. He'll tell you today, me and him still buddies. He's like, you were beating the heck out of me. And I hit him in the back of the head. And all of a sudden, man, I was like, oh crap, Jody, you're not breathing. You can't breathe, you dummy. And I just run out of air. I was just completely out of wind. I didn't train a day for it. All I did was lift weights. Right. And he went on to the money fight. And I suffered with 4th place, which don't pay crap. But it was a learning experience. And after that, I started chasing those stupid things all across this Midwest and the Mid-South. And tell you what, a lot of fun, a lot of money, a lot of fun.
On that first one you was talking about, Tough Man's was always tournament style, right?
Yeah. They had 175 pounds and up and 175 pounds and down was the 2 weight divisions.
That's a lot of fighting. How was your hands after you got done? Did you use tape underneath the gloves like a regular boxer or what?
No, they won't let you tape your hands. They won't let you wrap your hands. It's 16-ounce gloves. I mean, you couldn't bust a grape in. Well, you would say you can't bust. I've knocked many people out with them. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, you can't, you're not supposed to wrap your hands. You're not supposed to wrap your wrist. Nothing to help you. They try to make it as easy as possible and as fair as possible. And they really, Art Dorr, who does the tough man that made Butterbean so famous, is he's the one. He's a pioneer for it, I believe. He really made it what it became later on after my time. I mean, obviously Butterbean, he's kind of like everybody looks at him and says, oh, that's what tough men are. You know, Butterbean was just a freak of nature, man. I mean, that guy there, hey, I'm happy for him. I'm glad he got to do all he got to do because he wasn't too far. There wasn't too many. There's a lot of guys that wouldn't. They were right behind him. It wouldn't took much to have somebody else fall right in his place. But
Right.
Butterbean's look was different. He's down there in your neck of the woods.
That he is. You also did a little professional wrestling, didn't you?
Oh yeah, yeah. I got into that after Tough Man, and that was I qualified in a Tough Man in '93 in Knoxville. I won Knoxville, which was a childhood dream. I won Knoxville's Toughest Man, and I was the first guy ever from the state of Kentucky to win it. So they hated my guts, needless to say. I was getting coffee thrown on me. I was getting popcorn thrown at me. I mean, they hated my guts. But by the time it was over with, and there's so much ties into that in my life from that night. The guy I fought the money, he was a giant dude. I mean, he was your size, but he was chiseled. I mean, he was. I was like, oh, this is gonna be a night right here. He broke my jaw, cracked my cheekbone, and I won. I looked terrible, man. My whole face was sweating like the Elephant Man, but I won. I was happy, and I got qualified to go to Vegas. I was pretty tickled with that, and he had an old guy in his corner with a cane. He was like his manager. I thought, oh, that's funny. And I sent you some pictures earlier. The guy standing in the back with the flag, the old man in front of him, that's Jim White. That was the old guy across the old manager guy the boy had across the ring from me in Knoxville, which I didn't know that at the time. I didn't know who he was. Jim White was actually Jerry Lawler's first tag team partner in Memphis.
The
And
king.
they say he's kind of the guy that helped Jerry Lawler get into the business. Jim White managed me and Chuck, my partner there in the picture. He managed us for almost 2 years. And he's a very smart man, buddy. He's a very smart man. He was a wealth of knowledge. You just had to be the sponge to sit there and listen to him. But after I won the Knoxville Tough Man, I I tried to stay in the tough man business, but I was needing more money, and I got stupid, and I decided I would try the other side of life. I won't go to the other side, and that cost me a couple of years in the penitentiary. That was a very changing point in my life, and a lot of people say that, but when I look back now, mentally and emotionally, it caused me to be. While I was in there, my biggest thing was, I can be a failure at a lot of things. I can fail at sports. I can fail at being a husband. I can fail at anything in the world. I said, when I get out of here, I'll be damned if I fail at being a father. I'm not going to do it. And I said, when I get out of here, I said, I will do anything I want to do as far as sports. I said, I'll be in the shape I can. And man, I work my guts out, man. I mean, I work like a dog. 16 months of flat getting after it. And when I got out, I was 430 pounds when I went in. And when I come out, I was 275 pounds. I was in shape like a son of a gun, buddy. I could go all day and all night. As soon as I hit the streets, I went back to Tough Man. I went to the Indiana-Kentucky Brawl. I won that. They called it a qualifier for the world again, so I was tickled with that. And never happened, of course. I went to a buddy of mine. He runs some like youth centers in Knoxville. He boxed with us. He's Tom Cox. He's a great guy. He run with us over out of the hood when we was training to fight over there. You got to figure now, I trained with a bunch of professional fighters, and we trained on a tree outside in the hot weather. We trained 8 and 10 hours a day. We didn't have a gym in the winter. We went to Jimmy's kitchen in the projects, and we sparred in the kitchen. We had a heavy bag hanging from the roof, which I'm sure the people in the housing projects didn't like that. But hey, guess what? We didn't care. We had a good time. We trained champions out there. Jimmy Haynes has fought all over the world. He's fought on HBO. He's fought on USA. He's fought Klitschko. I mean, he's fought them all. Mark, another guy, he's an amateur fighter. Shane Steele, he's fought on ESPN too. I mean, he's fought around the world too. So, I mean, when I say, we've been in the fight business, in Corbin, Kentucky, we were in the fight business long before it got to be the big business it is today.
Whenever you say you went outside and trained on a tree, tell me about that.
Well, there was an old tree And I guess, I'm not sure what kind of tree it was. I guess it was 4 foot round in diameter, had a big limb hanging off the front of it. And the guys over there in the housing projects would pull their cars over there sometimes and use the other side of this tree to pull motors out of cars and stuff, They would
Right.
hook the chain and stuff over it. So we just started hanging a bag off the limb, and we had a little place over there we worked out, and we called it the Tree of Life. Because it would definitely it would make your life or break your life if you let it.
Right.
But it was 100 degrees, man. Man, we never let up. We were in the best shape. We could do anything. We could go all day and all night. Thoroughbreds is kind of where I get it from, I guess. But it was a learning experience. It was the greatest time of my life, really. But after my little vacation, I call it, when I come home, Tough Man had changed. Uh, I literally got to the point I run down all these small Tough Mans, locally, Indiana, Ohio, and finally I went back and fought for the guy that promoted the fight over in Indiana, and I went to Louisville to fight and won for him. He pulled me to the side and he said, Jody, he said, I'll be honest with you. He said, I can't let you fight. And I said, why not? I said, I'm in good health. I said, I ain't, I'm not a pro. I said, why? He goes, well, I got 10 guys here that do the same thing you do. And they say, if you're fighting, they're not fighting. They're going home because they can't win. You kidding me? He said, no. He said, no. I can take your $50 and have nobody else to fight and give you the 1,000. Or I can take these 10 guys and their $50 and all the people they bring with them. You see, it's a business decision.
Yeah.
And I just stood there and I said, all right, man, I get it. So I had to go home and kind of reevaluate where I was looking at things. And I went with Jimmy to Louisville. He was having a fight, and they needed a heavyweight. So I decided I'd turn pro that night. And I fought Mark Green. And everybody said, oh, Mark Green, never heard of him. Well, neither had I. But believe me, I know exactly who he is today. He had just come, he was a southpaw, and he had 4 fights. That's all I knew about him. Well, by the time the fight was over with, second round, first time I'd ever been stopped by the ref. And he had bruised my kidneys, my ribs, and just literally chopping me down like a tree. Just had me in the corner. I was just covered up. He was just blasting on me. And the dude was, he was four fights. He was 4-0. He'd just come from the Olympic trials. He was a bad hammer, man. He was a bad hammer. And he told me, he did tell me, he made me feel a lot better about it, which he couldn't make me feel real good at that point. He was a twin. His twin brother was in the back. And he said, he said, I've never seen anybody, stand and take that much punishment, much less I've never seen anybody hit him that many times. He goes, and not to mention knock him around like that. He said, don't give up on fighting. He goes, man, you got a big future. And I thought, I was 360 pounds. I gained, 65, 75 pounds since I've been home from jail. And it was my own fault. But that's the only pro fight I ever had. I decided, I guess I'm not as what I thought I was. It was a kind of a check for me. And that was in February of 1996. I got a hold of my buddy Tommy up in Knoxville that I was telling you about. And he run kids' youth centers and stuff. And I asked him, I said, I had talked to some guys while I was locked up that were from Knoxville. And they said, yeah, there's a semi-pro football team up there. So I called Tommy and asked him if he knew anybody. And he goes, I got a number. He's a manager. He's like an agent. So I called the guy and he was talking to me. And he said, well, he goes, I'll be honest with you, I don't know if you fit in with this team here in Knoxville or not. And I was like, well, I said, I don't know what you mean by fit in. And he goes, it's East Knoxville. And I just kind of laughed. I said, I still don't follow. He goes, well, you're white, ain't you? I was like, oh, yeah. I said, what difference does that make? I said, I play football. He's like, well, he goes, let me give you a number of a guy. They're starting a new team over in Morristown, Jeff City. So he gave me John Jacobs' number. And I know not John Jacob Jingleheimer Schmidt, just John Jacobs. He's a good guy.
That's exactly what was
And,
popping in my head.
Hey, believe me, it hit my head back then. It was funny. And John, hey, let me tell you something. John became a very, very good friend to me. I've lost touch with him over the years, but John Jacob was a great guy. I took a friend of mine with me, Troy Thomas. He's actually an assistant coach at Williamsburg High School today, football coach, weightlifting coach. Good dude, man. One of the best guys I've ever known. And I mean, he went down there. They had already had team tryouts. And he said, yeah, we'll give you tryouts. And because we kind of give him our superlatives over the phone. So he gets down there and, he's very, he laughed at me years later. He told me, he said, when I first met you, he goes, I would have never dreamed. And because I had tore hamstring. So I felt like this guy told me he's tore hamstring. So he's already making excuses. And I was like, I was just telling you, I tore a hamstring. I said, it wasn't like I was, backing out and going to quit. And we done everything we was going to do. And he said, it's just like NFL tryouts, they 225 bench press for how many times you can do it, 40-yard dash, 20-yard dash, shuttle runs, vertical leap. And, the time we got done, we were like, well, when will you let us know if we made the team? He goes, oh, Williams play, please? Please, will you play? Sure, we'd love to. He said, in 2 weeks, we're having a team meeting at a place in Jeff City, a little pizza joint. Said, everybody will be there. So wish you guys could make it so you could meet everybody and kind of get to know everybody. I think we started with 85 guys on the team. And I think we finished with 27.
Wow.
I played both sides. I played both sides of the ball. I was the only 300-pounder to finish training camp. I was, I don't want to toot my own horn, but toot. I was probably the strongest guy there by far. And me and Troy didn't make it. So he made the second game and tore muscle in his back, and he was done. But he won defensive player of the game, first game we ever had. He was a bear. But now, by the end of the season, we didn't win a game. We lost every game we played. And at the end, I just kind of thought, you know what, it was an experience. And we played teams. I played against Major Harris that won the Heisman.
Mm-hmm.
I played against him in West Virginia. And believe me, when they say that he was a freak of nature, they're not just whistling Dixie. I sacked him 3 times. And on the third sack, I give him credit for it. But they's like, it's hard to give you credit for it when he was going upside down, going to the ground through a 30-yard completion. I said, oh, I know. Believe me, I know. Because the guy, I rolled over. He's on top of me. He passed me on the head. He goes, you got to be faster than that, fat ass. I was like, yeah, tell me about it. And believe me, that turf's unforgiving. Oh, man, I'm telling you, buddy, he was a good sport, though. He was a good guy. I got the pleasure to talk to him, get to know him a little bit. And that was probably that year out there, even though we lost so tragically to that team, it was a very, very good experience for me. And at the end of the season, I was very surprised to be notified that I made the Pro Bowl. And the team couldn't afford to send me, so I didn't get to go actually participate. They took I was the second team. I was an alternative. And they had chose me to come on up and play, and I couldn't make it, so they had to take another alternative, obviously.
Right.
And the next season, we were in the International Football League that year. The next season, the owners of the team had decided to move to the Southern Football League, stationed out of Georgia. And it kind of shortened our trips down, didn't have to travel as far because we were going Virginia Beach and stuff, the International Football League. It was a lot of travel. And the next season when we went to Southern Football League, it was we had a lot of different guys step in. We had guys that had played in the European Football League, the NFL. They played in the NFL. They played in CFL. I'm going to tell you something, man. There's some talented people in this world. There's some tough son of a guns in this world. And how they don't make it in the NFL is beyond me. And we went second season. we finished up 9-2. We made it to the first round of the playoffs. I made it to Pro Bowl again. And after the season was over, during the season, one of the owners, Chris Captain, it kind of ties into wrestling a little bit afterwards, but Chris Captain is married to Kevin Sullivan's daughter, as we know, the Prince of Darkness himself. And I cooked for them at a little grill at a bar they'd opened up. And actually, Chris invented that job for me just so I could play. And, what little bit of income I had coming in, the cooking gig helped me with my bills and kept my probation officer off my back.
Yeah.
Well, by the middle of the season, I was off probation. I was done. But they continued with the job, letting me work, and everything was good. And Sam and Andy's in Knoxville, if you ever get to eat there. Chris is on the West End, and his dad, I think, his dad or his brother one runs the West End store. If you ain't ever eat a good steamed sub, you need to go there and check them out. Tell him Big Jody sent you. He'll know exactly who you're talking about.
Next time I'm in Knoxville, I'll do that.
But now when the third season, after the second season I played in the Southern Football League, I told Chris, I said, I'm going to try and go to this truck driving school and get my CDLs back because I had lost them while I was locked up.
Right.
So I went and did that, and I still cooked at Sam and Andy's, and they tried to help me as much as possible. They knew what I was trying to do, Yeah. And time season started, I had started trucking. My third season, I made practice twice the whole season, and I never started a game. It's kind of everybody said, well, man, you pissed this whole season away. I was like, well, I plan on retiring this year anyway. It's time to donate my time to my family, and give them the best living I can give them. I mean, I've made it just fine up to now. I had bought a house and was remodeling it and trying to get ready to move in. It was a very hard time because I wanted to play ball. I just wanted to play, But also during that time, I had started training to wrestle. Dale Mann, Cousin Junior, was in the WWE, WWF.
Mm-hmm.
He worked for Dale. My buddy Chuck, my tag team partner, me and him been friends for 20 plus years. We ran the gyms in town. He run the gym in London. I run the gym in Corbin. And me and him were always friends, and still friends this day. It's my brother from another mother, I call him. My kids call him Uncle Chuck. That's the way it's always been. That's the way it'll always be.
Right.
And when me and him, we would travel back and forth to Bowling Green, doing these small shows. I was doing security. I didn't know how wrestling worked, as far as the business end of it. I mean, I knew what wrestling was. It was, high octane, cinema, I guess you call it, kind of stunt men just with a plan. And I enjoyed that. That was great with me. Dale told me, he said, you come out here, do security, help set up the ring, break down the ring. He said, I can give you gas money. Well, I was telling Chuck, I said, yeah. He said, he could give me gas money if I do this, this, and this. And he was like, he's going to pay you to train? I'm like, well, yeah, I guess. So you can look at it that way. And Dale always give me $20, $30 a week because he knew I was driving from Tennessee all the way to Bowling Green. And you got to think, now I live over on the border of Virginia, Tennessee, and Kentucky, right in that area.
Right.
So he was just like, you're driving quite a ways. And I was driving in a 76 Nova, no less. And
getting about
so he always took care of me.
Gallon.
Dale man was a good man. Yeah, somewhere out in there. The guys that I worked with, the guys I wrestled with were very, two of them were coaches out of Hazard, and they're still coaches out of Hazard. John Noble, Eddie Browning, Hitman Tony. It's a funny story with him. He had told me he was from Somerset, which, I don't really know him back from Somerset back then. And here a while back on my Facebook, or the Book of Faces, whatever you want to call it, I put on there, I changed where I lived at. And he goes, where do you live over there? And I told him, he goes, so do I. So 20 plus years after I meet this guy and we wrestle and run the roads together, I literally can walk out my back door and turn to the right, and I can see the edge of his house from where I live. Ironic, man, just ironic how that works. But
very small world,
you
ain't
know,
it?
when I was very, very small world, it's crazy how things just roll together. But after my last season playing ball, I decided, you know, I would truck, and I did. And I've been trucking ever since, but I started wrestling at the end of football season that year. And I hit my ring debut was in Danville, Kentucky. And Vic the Bruiser was in the ring with me. And he didn't call it, and I didn't see it coming, but he buckled a metal chair over my head. And I didn't sell it. I didn't even flinch, I don't think, which popped the crowd like a shotgun because they hated Vic. They hated Vic's guts. He said he was the illegitimate son of Dick the Bruiser.
Right.
And I don't know if you know who Vic is, but Vic's about 5'10", black, got white hair, and he was the illegitimate son of Dick the Bruiser, which went over like a war. Literally, people hated him on sight. And we got back to back. And he's like, man, I didn't know what to do. He goes, the crowd was going stale. I said, hey, it's fine, man. They pop like a gun for that. He's like, oh, God, yeah. Dale comes back to back. He goes, what are you guys doing? He looked at him. He goes, what kind of chair shot you call it? He goes, swinging for the fences. He looked at me. He goes, you all right? I'm like, I'm fine. Why? He was like, he walks out and reaches around the corner of the door, grabs the chair, and he throws it in there. And I'm like, well, what's that? He goes, that's half of that chair. It broke over your head. And I just laughed. I was like, well, I guess they don't make them like they used to. And he goes, boys, we can't have chair shots like that. And he goes, I can't keep affording these chairs. And I just laughed about it. And
oh, he was worried about the chair, not your head.
Years down the road. Oh, yeah. He had to pay for the chair.
Right.
And I don't know what they charged him for, but it's probably more than what I made that night. And, you know, I traveled with Dale and them. We done shows. You know, I was trucking full time. So I was limited to Friday night local, Saturday night. I go travel to where Dale was. And Sunday, if we were able to, I would get to as local shows as I could. So I was literally trucking all week, wrestling all weekend for, I guess, from 2000 to 2003. And in my first pro boxing fight, I snapped my arm and I hyperextended it. Yeah. I didn't know that it had chipped a piece of bone out of my elbow. Well, that piece of bone where I kept using my arm all those years was grinding and chomping that bone up. It was getting in my ligaments. It was restricting my movement.
Yeah.
So by 2003, I had to have surgery on my elbow, which it worked. It worked fine. But because I put it off so long, it caused a lot of atrophy and stuff, and a lot of restriction, a lot of nerve damage and muscle damage. So I went back to wrestling about 4 months later. Now you got to figure, during all this time in 2000, when I first started wrestling, I got my neck broke. I got it knocked out of place and had to go back and forth chiropractor for like 6 months to get snapped back together. That's a whole nother story. Good Lord. I'd be all day telling you that one. But did a DDT on me trying to be a good brother and a good solid worker. I was going to sell it for him. And he just hooked me real hard. And needless to say, I retired him that day. I don't know if he ever wrestled again. Believe me, he wouldn't wrestle like he used to be. I thought, man, that was a dirty deal right there.
In wrestling language, that is called a receipt.
Yes, very much so. I didn't really know him, and he didn't know me. Me trying to just do the right thing and I want to sell it because I want to make sure, I'll let I'm going to work with you, man. I'm going to sell what you got.
Right.
I'm trying to make you look good here. And needless to say, I got back to back. Jim White looks at me. He goes, why'd you give that son of a bitch a DDT for? He goes, he ain't big enough to give a DDT to you. I said, well, he had me beat down. I thought it was the right thing to do. He just patted me on the back. He goes, big boy, I got so much to teach you. Little did I know, so on the money. But that my neck getting broke, I started putting weight on because I was 340 when I started wrestling. I played ball at 340, and when I got my neck broke, before long I was at 400 pounds. I was trucking, so obviously my motor was going a different way. My metabolism wasn't what it was, but I was still eating and doing the same as I was doing.
Right.
But I wasn't burning it off like I was. And before long, by 2003, when I'd had my elbow surgery, I was still about 400 pounds. I had a little bout with that elbow for about 6 or 8 months, and I had ballooned up to 500 pounds, literally overnight. And by 2006, I was bouncing right off 595.
Wow.
And I wasn't working out. I was just trucking. It got to where I would go to the ring years before, man. I would run and dance, carry on and act a fool and never blow up, man. It couldn't blow me up in the ring. I would never get blowed up. For all you people who don't know what blowed up means, I never got tired. But I'm going to tell you something. When I got up to 595 pounds, walking to the ring blew me up.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I literally would get to the side of the ring and I'd sit there and just kind of talk at the crowd and stuff. And it was everything I could do to crawl up in the ring.
Yeah.
And I said, I'm going to get somebody hurt. It's about time for me to call today. And I did for, I think 2006 was when I finally said I'm done. Like I said, 2007, I had the lap band done. It's just been kind of glad to be here from this point on,
Right.
Glad to be above ground. No, but it's been as far as my athletic career and all that, it's been a good life, man. I got no regrets. I've done it my way, and it's what I always said I was going to be. My mom used to laugh at me because when I was a kid, there's all kinds of pictures of me flexing, showing my muscles and stuff, just like little kids do. And
yeah,
she said, "What are you going to do when you grow up?" I said, "I'm going to be the strongest, toughest man in the world." And I look back now and I say, yeah, I think I've done all that as far as much as I need to. I got nothing else to prove.
I want to circle back a little bit. I want to go back to whenever you played semi-pro ball. How was the money back then, and how many leagues did you have? Because I know you mentioned that you made the Pro Bowl and everything. How was semi-pro ball set up back then?
Well, International Football League, the first year I played, literally played for nothing. My ex-wife financed it for me. She was working. I was playing ball. I was cooking, just doing whatever I could do to make it. The second year, mind you, I was under contract to the team. The second year, they took good care of me. Let's see, what was it? We played the Southern Football League, played the Eastern Football League in the Pro Bowl. And I don't know how that league structure was as far as playing different leagues or whatever, but it was set up in regions, the Eastern, Western, Northern. I don't know. We never played anybody outside the Southern. We didn't even play anybody in the Eastern in the regular season. But at the end of the season, you go to the Pro Bowl. The big team to beat back then was the Atlanta Prime, and we did play the Atlanta Prime in the regular season. My second year, they were defending national champions. I couldn't tell you how many years. We beat them 27-0. So
Nice.
that kind of gave us a lot of national exposure, and we had all kinds of the owner, John, he always took good care of me. I never wanted for nothing. Like I said, they gave me a job. They paid me well. And I could, without, I wouldn't want to hurt none of the other guys' feelings to how much I was making. But, I would never want them to look back and be mad at them for that. You know what I mean? So I'll just leave that up in the air.
There you go.
There was a few guys they did that way. Guys that they really didn't want to, they didn't want to lose us. They didn't want us to go anywhere because we were the glue.
Right.
And I love those guys, man. They were good fellas, good guys. But now as far as the league, it was, we played a lot of high school fields. little field that we played on there in Knoxville was a Christian school. Very nice little place, enjoyed it. We helped them with a lot of money so they could do a lot of work to their stadium and stuff, which they had a very nice stadium. It was just outdated, but I guess they've got all kinds of new bleachers and stuff now. And they finally got them a football team. They had never had a football team. And actually, one of the guys that I played with, Bear, his son played there, got a scholarship to go to college to play football there. And he said, it ain't like it used to be. I was like, well, that's great. I'm glad they did something with it. And it's always good,
Yeah.
And I wish I could have transferred that back to my hometown, my old high school. I wish something like that would have been around here. It'd been a lot better on, because, that was what I tried to, in the off seasons, I would go to my old high school in the weight room and work out at my old school, because I wanted those boys to see, you're from a small school. Lane Camp High School is a single A school. You might have 25, 30 kids come out for football during the season. You get over 30 kids coming out for football there, that's a record setter.
Yeah.
Because when I was a senior, we had 14 seniors. Yeah. And that was crazy to have that many seniors. But now I wanted those boys to understand, you might be from a small school, but there's nothing you can't do. There's nowhere you can't go. There's nothing you can't do. So don't think that football ends here. And we've had guys play for UK. We've had a lot of, everybody said play for UK. Play for Kentucky. They didn't do nothing. Hey, Kentucky's come a long way.
Yes,
they're actually Kentucky. I'm a big Kentucky football fan. Kentucky has Jimmy Chafin played for Kentucky, and he's one of the all-time leading rushers at Lane Camp. He's a great guy, good kid, good man now. And he played for the same coach I played for. My oldest son played for the same coach I played for. He's not there anymore. He's pretty much retired. God bless him. He's a good man. He was good to me, and he taught me a lot. David Mitchell he played for Morehead University. He was actually played with Phil Simms when Simms played there. He's tight end. And I don't know, Phil Simms, he's NFL great,
Yes, he was.
So got taught a lot of good stuff.
Jody, I appreciate you coming on the show. All right.
But I appreciate you having me, man. I've never done this before, so it's a good one for me.
Hey, man, I've had fun. It's just been a good conversation between two friends on the porch. Big thanks to Jody Disney for coming on the porch to share his story. Today was an overview. I'll have to get Jody back on the porch to tell more stories. If you are new to the show and like what you hear, hit that like, subscribe, or follow button and download the episodes in our archives. If this show has been a positive addition to your life, please rate the show and leave a review. Won't take you but a minute, and it really would help out the show. Find us on social media by typing Porch Matters Podcast in the search bar. Word of mouth is still the best way of sharing. Pick your favorite episode and share it with at least one person this week. There are a lot of people out there that have never heard of a podcast before. I sure would appreciate it. And I'll see you next time right here on Porch Matters.